Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paranormal, the new normal. Once again, I am back trying to make the world seem more normal. Does it ever happen? We're kidding ourselves at this point if I keep asking this every fucking episode, but it doesn't happen. Tonight, may happen, who knows? I say that all the time, and then we go down some wormhole and it doesn't happen. It just... But anyway, as always, I bring a guest with me on this perilous journey. And my guest tonight, I am very happy to have. My guest tonight is Joy Giovanni, medium, mystic, mentor, and former WWE Diva. I had to throw it in there at some point. But welcome, Joy. How are you doing tonight?
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I'm happy to be here. How are you doing?
It's been a fun night, kids and all that, but I get to podcast now, so my night just got immensely better. And I got to dig down a wormhole for wrestling a little bit, so fuck yeah, that was a fun few minutes of times passed in high school. But let me start off the show the same way I start off every show. What got you into the paranormal? What brought you down this path? And I'm actually more curious to hear your answer than most, because to go from WWE Diva model and all that to being medium mystic, like that's a path I haven't seen before, and I'm dying to hear it.
Well, thanks. I don't think it's totally dissimilar to anyone else's path, where I think it's only in retrospect that we can really realize the breadcrumbs or the pieces of us that make up who we are. So I feel like it seemed like a sharp turn of events for me in my life when I started having, I don't know, kind of paranormal experiences. I don't really use the word paranormal in my work just because it has a different connotation, but experiences with the unseen world, we'll say it that way. But then looking back, there are so many times when I was a kid where I was, seeing swirling colors around people who are giving talks, for example, or just very aware of a connection with something I couldn't see. I used to, like, when I was a little kid, I was on my own a lot, and I would play and I would say, okay, I know you guys are here, so I wish you could just answer back to me and talk to me, which I now realize is a really strange thing to be feeling as a kid, not alone. But it wasn't something that I held on to in a really, I don't know, kind of conscious way. So when I was an adult, I did a little bit of college, had kids young, and I wanted to do a job that I felt like would, I don't know, be beneficial, but that I could also control my schedule. And nothing was really sticking. And I ended up getting really interested in homeopathic medicine, like holistic medicine, back, oh my gosh, my youngest kiddo is 23 now. So it was probably about that long ago. And it was really through that process that I came to eventually understanding energy work, and all the pieces kind of came back together for me. The acting career is really more of like an offshoot branch of my tree that was something I always wanted to do, but kind of didn't make sense. And now with mediumship, that's kind of looped back around too, because there are aspects of it all woven through. So I guess it's like anyone who's got a small business or a craft or an art of some kind. It's like it ends up being just this, there's no like linear trajectory for me, but it all feels like me. Does that make sense? I know it's an existential way to say it, probably.
Oh, it honestly makes 100. Well, as a podcaster, it makes 100% sense, because this is a journey I never saw myself going down either 2-3 years ago, and now it's just one of those things that my life wouldn't be the same without it. So it's like, and everything comes back to podcasting always. Like,
yeah,
it got me the freaking real job I have, because I got a job in sales, because they said, you're a podcaster, you sell yourself every day of the week. You know how to sell things.
I've heard you on interviews, and it really does sound like you're bringing the most authentic, curious part of yourself. So I'm glad you get what I'm saying, that it just feels like the most authentic part of you. So I like that for you.
It is, because I get to talk about the things I can't just go to someone at my real job and talk about. I get to talk about things that I didn't even know existed. I get to talk about I get to find out. I learn something new on every podcast I do. It's just the greatest thing. It's a great thing. I mean, I want to learn shit. So, and this is actually interesting stuff to learn, unlike other stuff I can learn out there that's not Yeah, I can learn other languages and stuff too, but I don't really want to.
Well, it's funny
So
the way you say it too, of like, I never, like, this is things I can't really talk to, the general population about. When I first started with my first mentor, who I'm happy to tell you that story, it kind of accidentally, serendipitously, I guess, came together. I don't really believe in chance. Um, and when I would talk to her and hear the way she talked about all of this non physical stuff, I used to think in the back of my mind, like, yeah, I'm never going to be one of these people that just like talks like this in the open all the time, like a crazy person. And now I'm like, oh, I'm the crazy lady. Like that's all the time.
well, I mean, more and more people are awakening in the spiritual realm, so
Yeah.
it's becoming the new normal, hence the name for my show. Like, yeah,
Yeah. I think you're on track with that. I really do.
the fact the name of the show literally came from the fact that I was listening to so many other paranormal podcasts,
Yeah.
and one of them is just regular people calling in with their experiences, and there were so many different voices calling in over the seasons. That's just like this is becoming the, and like I see a Facebook community building around that podcast too for the last decade almost, and it's just like what I'm like I never seen this before. So when I wanted to start a paranormal podcast, that's the only name that's the first name popped in my head. And I was like, you know what, fuck it. I asked a couple other podcasters like, what do you think? And they're like, is it taken? I'm like, nope. They're like, use it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're done.
Well,
We
and
figured it out in like
it
five
is pretty
seconds.
amazing to your point of we don't really think about it, right? But we talk about the language of energy and intuition in our common vernacular so much. Like we'll say, oh, that really breaks my heart. Well, you're not physically breaking your heart, you're talking about your energy. Or we'll say, oh, wow, there was such good energy on that call today. Like I'm really feeling inspired. Like that's all energy. It's just for some reason culturally we have it separated, even though we talk about it all the time.
Well, I mean, it's separated culturally because of just the simple fact that I mean, people hushed and hushed this stuff for so many hundreds of years. They persecuted this stuff for hundreds of
For sure.
years. With so many people burned because they were witches, but or just weird. So many women, especially, just killed because they didn't fit into society quite the way that everybody else wanted them to because they were innovators. And I mean, it's just that's why it is the way it is today because all these things became just sayings, just words we use because you know we didn't know why anymore. We kind of lost that aspect of our culture. And it took a lot of people in the last 20 years spiritually awakening and making this a regular business, making psychics not be a little shop on Main Street that your parents tell you not to go waste money in. Like it took all this to where there's actually conventions for paranormal people now that aren't just alien conventions. I mean, they're more than that now.
Yeah.
Now they're for everybody.
Well, and there's so many sub sects too, right? So many different, there's something for everyone, I guess, is a good way to think of it. And it is like,
Yeah.
there's gateways. A lot of times energy work is a big gateway into all of this too.
On this show, we use Bigfoot erotica as an example of that because there's a segment for
Really?
everybody.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, there's a sub hole, there's a little hole for everybody to go into if they want to, and go down your own wormholes, people. I'm not saying I go down them as much as my former co-host Scott like to say I did. I don't go down those wormholes, but no, some of the authors who write them are actually real authors who write good stuff. So I'm just saying, I
Oh,
don't, I'm not.
interesting.
Eh, eh. Yeah, actually, that was the weirdest Amazon search I ever went on my freaking life, and I'm so happy I did because I heard it on a podcast, and I was like, that can't exist. I'm like, oh wait, fuck, it exists. But
Oh, that's
so
funny.
eh, that's as far as I can get into the weird thing. And I will say, reading that you grew up in Boston is kind of funny because I do live in Massachusetts, so
What part?
Gardner.
I don't even know where that is. Where is where is that? Is that Western
You,
Mass?
it's north central, I guess is the best description.
Okay.
You take Route 2 out of Cambridge and just ride it
Okay.
west.
How far? Really far?
Eh,
An hour
from
far?
from Boston, about 45 to an hour, depending on traffic.
Okay. Yeah, that's I've probably
But
been
yeah,
there, but I don't remember.
maybe. I mean, I don't know a reason anybody would come out here unless they. But ah, well, let me ask you this: what type of mediumship do you like to do? Because there's a lot of different types.
Totally.
And I mean, every medium I talk to it has a different way of working these things. So I like to always ask this question.
It's a great question. I mean, I think there's there's two parts, right? So we all have different gifts and abilities, and the way they present and the way we work with them is a little bit different. And then there's this kind of challenge of the language, because a lot of people are assigning words to things that it's the closest way of saying it as we can get, but it's not quite right. And so it muddies the waters. So for me, the type of mediumship I trained in is called evidential, which really just means that when people's loved ones communicate, I like them to share some specific details about themselves as a person. The type of details that they'll share really depends on them. Some will communicate things about their personality or share with me memories of their life that I can share with their loved ones. Some will talk about's not exactly the right words. Some will share memories of their life, things going on in your life. Some will talk about little nuanced details about their personality or things they remember. The example I usually give for people is that some spirit communicators, when they communicate, want to talk about the details of their passing, some don't. So really, it's in the details that they bring that they're essentially proving or giving evidence that their soul continues on, just in a different way, that they still exist, and that we can still communicate with them, sense them, that they still know what's going on in our lives, and they still get to spend time with us.
Nice. I like that. I do like that.
But you're right. There's lots of different
Oh,
kinds.
there is. I mean, I don't know. Pet medium somehow always get me like as the ones I can not stop asking questions of. It's
I can
like
communicate with pets if they come and
oh,
communicate with me.
animal communication is just the whole Dr. Dolittle aspect of things is so fucking cool. Like,
I'll tell you, they don't communicate incredibly different than human beings because they're a soul. And I feel like this is a little bit debated even in the mediumship community of whether animals communicate, what types of animals communicate, to what degree. I always encourage people just have your own experience and see, you know what I mean? We can't only go off the experience of others. So, yeah, anyone who's had a pet or a animal loved one knows that there's a soul in there, so they communicate a lot like people do, but they have less difficult emotions than us, I'll say.
yeah, especially my dogs. They're kind of stupid. They one is just the most energetic, freaking annoying thing in the world. He just wants to. If he had it his way, he'd be running around a freaking 5 acre property all freaking day, just running around peeing and everything.
It's very
But
energetic, huh?
oh god, it's as soon as you let him out of out of his cage in the morning to go out, it's just like oh my god, like freaking zoomies every freaking minute of his life, and
That's funny.
it's annoying because if you don't move fast enough, like he'll start jumping on you and stuff. Like it's like he's like come on, come on, come on, come on. Like it's just like it's oh my god,
Well, see,
it's like
even
a
in that,
freaking
like that's a specific personality type. So,
oh yeah.
each animal has its own likes and dislikes, its own personality, its own. So that's kind of how the quote unquote evidence of evidential mediumship, if one of them was communicating, God forbid, from the spirit world, they would communicate things about how they're individual from your other family members.
Oh, I mean, yeah, every animal has their own personality. That's
Yeah,
100%
just like
true. I
people.
mean, yep, exactly. Which have you ever worked with any less than normal animals? I'll put it that way because I don't like to say strange animals because there's no really strange animals. There's just our opinions.
I'll tell you, it's typically dogs and sometimes cats. Cats are a lot like they are in life, where some are very friendly and others are less engaging. So and that really usually goes to their personality. The first animal I communicated with was a horse, which was really interesting. And I
Ooh,
have communicated with a reptile a couple times. That communication feels very different to me in my work, anyway.
what kind of reptile? Out of curiosity.
It was, I think, one of those bigger, like Komodo dragon type
Oh, so
lizards.
like a mon lizard Komodo dragon like
I
type
think
thing.
so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm remembering. It's been a while, but if I'm remembering correctly. And people who we love our pets like our family. So it's often the same things people are wondering, are they okay? Are they upset about something, the end, their illness, whatever it is. So it's often the same sentiments, really.
exactly. And hey, Nicole, thanks for coming and watching tonight as always.
Hi, Nicole.
So, so, I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this, but
I'm like, if you're afraid of offending me, don't be. Just
no,
say.
no, not even that. Just I like you got to phrase questions right with this type of stuff, otherwise you get different answers.
That's very true.
So every medium I talk to also has different ways of communicating, whether
Mhm.
like habits, like whether some like candles, some like incense up first, some freaking like to have mirrors around the tables for some odd reason. I don't know why. Mirrors to me would be the last thing I want around my table when I'm talking to the dead. But okay, it people's have their own choices. But I don't mess with mirrors for reasons. But like, is there any habits or rituals you do before you like to start working?
No, nothing at all. Um, the way I'm trained and the way I work and the way I've seen a lot of colleagues work, think of it kind of like a baseball player. If a baseball player has a certain little bit of ritual that they like to do before they like throw their pitch, for example, a lot of them have this series of like touch my hat and pull my shirt, and it's kind of like that. So if it's something that makes the reader feel more comfortable or feel like they're ready to work, it's kind of a personal preference, but there's nothing we like need to do to set it up.
I mean, some people have rituals. I mean, that's
Yeah,
from my
exactly.
experience. Like, I mean, I've talked to other mediums too who say like, yeah, I don't do anything. Like, I could just be driving my car and they'll start talking to me. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. It just comes when it comes.
It's
But
not quite like that for me either. I have, I guess maybe it's just energetic boundaries or the way I work, but the, for example, if I have sessions later today, which is kind of late in our day, so it's not the case, but typically, like, say we're recording this in the morning and I have sessions later in the day, the spirit people that are going to work with me don't come in ahead and blend with my energy and try to give me details, because once I'm in that space, whether it's digital or in a physical room with their loved one who's here to hear from them, the energy all changes and it shifts. So perhaps if they came again with the same information, I might be thinking, oh, I'm remembering this from earlier. My mind's creating this information. So even if I am aware of them earlier, I ask them or request of them, you have to come in differently so I can give different details about you so I can work. So I also, it's not really a good thing to just be kind of this open all the time.
oh,
Like, we need to
you,
manage our own energy too as responsible mediums. So
oh God, yeah, you
yeah.
don't leave the portal open. On That's a bad idea. And I mean, well, when Nicole, go back to what I said a minute ago, says that mirrors are good for scrying. However, and
Everyone likes to
yeah,
work differently. It just depends on the work, the divination or spiritual work that person feels called to. And the other thing I always like to encourage people is that can change over time. So there was a time early in my work, for example, that I really loved tarot cards and card reading and did a little bit of pendulum work, and then there was a time where I didn't touch cards for several years just because I didn't feel called to them at that point. So I like to encourage people, like, it's an artistry, it's a fluidity. It doesn't have to be like so in the box. Do you know what I mean?
exactly. I mean, you don't have to. It's not like certain fantasy worlds out there where you pick one thing and that's what you got to work with the rest of your life. Like,
Yeah.
there's a great book series called Paper Magician. It's the first book, and it was actually supposed to get turned into Disney movies at one point, but they
Oh.
never freaking did it. It was really good books, but that's one of those worlds where you have to choose a specialty and you're stuck in that specialty for the most part. So, but
I
Nicole
mean,
had a
that
good
being said,
question.
it's good to like become an expert in your field, particularly if you're going to work professionally. That is one of my little kind of pet peeves, is back to what you said about like the people with the neon signs who everyone's like, oh, don't go to them, they're not real. there's always going to be, you know, either scammers or people who are just less than professional level who are charging. So yeah, find your
Oh
own practice, do what
yeah,
you like. But if you're please have some level of mastery before hanging your shingle.
yeah. That's we actually had a scammer like that on our network for a while,
Oh
for a little
wow.
bit there, and they would like start like they would like start commenting on our shows live, and then like they would start messaging everybody watching or commenting on our show, like and trying to
Oh
get them
yeah,
to.
that's a
But
thing.
like I had to block, like we had to block them. Like as soon as they come on now, we just like block them and delete their comments, and it's
Yeah.
just it hasn't been a while with me, thank God. But
And for
Nicole had a good
everyone in
question.
the community too, like that's like a huge red flag. Legitimate spirit workers, divination practitioners will not reach out to you or say like, "Oh, I have a." I had one lady email me privately and was like, someone was pretending to be me to her and said, "I have an urgent message of danger about one of your kids. You need to book a reading." And I was like, a real reader will never, ever do that. So don't get scammed out there. It's a
There's
wild
seriously,
world.
I'm friends with a lot of different mediums on Facebook and whatnot. And
Yeah.
one of them I know will actually post like, "This is something I read. I'm gonna put out
Yep.
the details of it, and I'm not looking to." She's like, "I'm not looking to book a session with you. I'm just letting you know." And like she'll leave the full thing. I keep waiting for the day it's me, but it never happens. But Nicole actually had a good question.
Oh, what was it?
What what gifts did you notice first? Hers was clairaudience.
Oh, that's cool. So for me, the way I understand it now is it used to be taught that all of the clairs are these separate faculties, separate senses, and really it's a whole group of senses that work essentially on a wheel together. So we might feel stronger in one area or another, but we really do have all of the different clairs, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustience is the taste and smell. Claircognizance is the knowing. So for me, the way it came in, it's so tough to like delineate it. I want to say not in mediumship necessarily, but in the psychic work and in the sensing, since my doorway in was really through Reiki, it probably came in the sensing first. But that being said, from the time I was very small, I could, when I closed my eyes, I would see swirling colors and I could perceive colors differently and colors around people. And I have memories of being under 2 years old and talking to spirit people or being aware of people that I was very aware of. So I don't have a clear memory of like what other people felt about it, but so it's hard for me to separate what was happening. And the other thing is, if you're having clairaudience, like if you're hearing a subjective, like an internal voice that's from someone disincarnate, for example, you're also sensing them at the same time, even if your conscious mind is not breaking it down into those steps. So there's a good chance you have a lot more going on than you think.
Oh well, Nicole says, and like she's like, I have all the clairs now,
Oh, awesome.
and apparently she can see the energy waves too, and her new thing is she likes remote view,
That can be
which
really fun. And it's a different remote viewing is a little bit more of a structured. I mean, I guess depending the way you do it, there's different schools of thought with remote viewing. Some of them go through a checklist of points that they're kind of tuning into, but that's remote viewing is a really fun practice too. Oh, I'm glad you're playing with the energy. Well done.
yeah, it's it's interesting because Claire Gustin, I never knew that was a. I never. I my first guest on my show ever was actually a Claire Gustin because she would get smells about people and she would know immediately like something's going on with them. And I never knew there was a term for it. Like I never heard that term before. See, like
Yeah.
I said, I learned something new every episode. I said it before. Like it's
There's so much. So that's the good news is we never have to be done learning in this work because there's always more. But yeah, I mean, anyone, even if someone is like, I don't understand what the heck that is, how could I possibly do that? Essentially, it's like if I tell you, not you, but like anyone listening or watching, if you think of the smell of your favorite meal, if you were to walk into a kitchen and someone's making like one of your favorite foods, if you can remember the smell of it, it's kind of like that. where it's not like you're necessarily going to smell it like someone standing next to you with a plate of spaghetti wafting it in your face, but it's that memory of the smell of garlic, for example, is a sort of how it works. The language is never quite right, but we do our best.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I can remember a lot of different. I was a fat kid. I can remember smells of cooking when I was a kid is one of the things that sticks out in my memory more than anything. Like,
Oh, I'm such
God.
a fan of food too. We could talk about that forever, I'm sure. But what's
Oh
so
God.
funny, okay, you'll like this, is from the beginning with mediumship. And the other thing is mediumship kind of, because it's an art form, it grows and changes, and it's not stagnant. It's living and moving itself within us. But from the beginning of my work, there'd be different, like grandmas, for example. I'm thinking of one in particular in a group reading. So it was like a group of maybe like 25 or 30 people. And it was this one grandma communicating. My sitters were this little family group of 3 or 4, and she was talking with or communicating with her daughters that were there. They were adults, about those Stelladoro S cookies. Do you know what those are? It's a very East
Yep.
Coast thing. People out here
Yep.
don't know what it is, but it's these anisette kind of like S cookies that you dip. They're a little bit crunchy. And they were just like so shocked. But I've had people bring like strange, I guess strange is not the right word, but interesting or unique food references to me, which that's sort of how our mediumship is individualized to each of us, because it's our own. If someone didn't know what that cookie was, they'd probably give them something else that was, you know what I mean? They're within their own reference, but it's how it's so unique to each person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all leave our own traits on this world, whether we want to
Totally.
or not.
Yeah.
Like,
Our own collection of qualities and characteristics, right?
exactly. Exactly. And
The awesome thing is we continue, like we keep that when we transition over to the other side. It's why it's part of the like evidence part of evidential mediumship. It's that they're part of them, the way they communicate, the like quote unquote messages are all laced in there. It's them expressing, I still have my sense of humor. I still remember that dance that we shared on that cruise. I still watch you baking those cookies, like whatever it is. So it's part of what I love. So I'm very passionate about this work. It's part of what I love about getting to do this work.
yeah, I mean, I trust me, I would love to actually awaken my abilities. I believe I've been told and I believe I'm an empath, but it's yet to truly reveal itself in any major way. So working on it.
Everybody's
But
empathic. I There's no way that you probably just aren't putting the language together, because I'm sure that you, even I'm trying to think back of the episodes of yours that I've listened to for like any references, but um it's kind of like, did you ever just like get a sense that, I know you've got kids that, for example, like, you're watching TV, they've already settled down to bed, but you just kind of get this sense of like, I think one of them's up and stirring around, and you go look and they are. It's, you're sensing the energy of them. It doesn't necessarily mean you know all the details of it, but it's just a light sensing of something, their emotion, their energy. It can be with any other person, really.
okay, actually, if you put it that way, I mean, I've had those moments like that.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has those to some degree. That sense of dread or danger that something bad's going to happen in the next like few minutes or something.
Yeah,
Even if
it
it does,
doesn't even have to be bad either. It can be like across the board in any area of our life. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. And it's not, here's the other piece of the language I think that might help, is it's not about predicting the future. It's about sensing and understanding what's happening right now. So like, for example, if you've ever felt like, yeah, extrasensory perception is sometimes what they used to call it. It's like if you've ever been having a conversation with someone and the words that they're saying, you're like, I know this person is saying that they're fine, but I don't feel like, if you're married, you definitely know what this is. I don't feel like this person's fine,
yep,
but I know they're saying that they're fine, but I feel like something's a little different. That's being an empath. That's what it is.
yeah, and you're 100% right about
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
that.
just the languaging is confusing. It's not, it's all over the place, the language of it. So that's the problem, I think.
Well, actually, you kind of gave me a good segue into the next question I wanted to ask.
Awesome.
Can anybody, in your opinion, become a psychic or medium? I ask this question of a lot of people, and the answers vary to some degree. But
Okay. So I'm going to give you my answer right now. If you ask me in 10 years, I might have a different answer. But as I understand it right now, so I believe that we all are empathic, intuitive, psychic. Those words are, they sort of mean the same thing. I think where we get confused is that we think it's about predicting the future. It's not. Once in a while, we might perceive a possibility or a potential and it comes to pass. Well, we're making our free will choice in that direction. It's not pre-decided for us like we're predicting the lottery numbers, for example, necessarily. So I think everyone has,
Unfortunately.
yeah, I have a funny story about that too. But so everyone's having these additional sensory experiences. Some people, in a strong degree or a high degree, some people are less aware of it, but it has more to do with training our awareness than it being built in. It's a built-in feature of us as humans. Now, mediumship essentially is a similar but slightly different answer. So the way that they say it in the work is mediums are born, not made. So even the best teacher couldn't make someone a medium if they're not a medium. However, I believe one has the ability to communicate with their own loved ones on the other side. It's just that communication might be different than the movies say it is, or than we want it to be. It's not them standing next to you talking in your ear. It doesn't work like that. And two, even if someone doesn't feel like they're a medium today in this moment, it doesn't mean that those qualities are not in the makeup of your soul and just haven't risen to the surface yet. So there's also always that potential that it could be kind of a latent thing in someone. I always like to use the example of Michael Jordan. Now, he undoubtedly had some given gifts that he was just born with. But if you know anything about this amazing athletic man, he put so much time and dedication and passion into practicing and honing his skills to be at that level. Had he just messed around, I mean, the story of him is he didn't even make the basketball team at one point in his young life. So this is my downtown ambient noises. Welcome to my living room. But so it's sort of like that. Everyone has the ability to sense and kind of play in their own backyard type thing. But if someone is wanting to train their abilities to be more discerning, that's a different thing. Does that make sense? It's a long-winded answer. I'm kind of long-winded. So
No, it completely makes sense. Completely. And
it's not so cut and dry, I think, just like most things.
oh yeah, I mean, as it shouldn't be. I mean, not everybody should have the ability to be. I don't want everybody in this world being psychic and know what people are thinking, because there's some people who would use that for less than noble purposes. Put it
Well, it
that way.
doesn't mean
But,
you always know what someone's thinking. It's not mind reading. That's not the same thing.
well, I mean, it's not. I mean, that's telepathy. That's a whole different thing. That's a Professor Xavier type thing. But I wish I could do that. Come on now.
And think of
That's
how
the
many
dream.
things we have going on at the same time. We might have a conscious thought, then we also have the true thought, then we have the subconscious behavior that's causing or affecting these thoughts. Then we have the core qualities of who we are as a soul underneath all of this id personality part. So we're complex beings, us
Actually,
humans.
funny you say it that way, because I just saw Inside Out 2 last night,
Oh,
and
I saw that. Did you like it?
it was good. It was good. I would have rather gone see Deadpool Wolverine, but
Okay.
kids.
Well, I
It
saw
was
it a
kids.
while ago, so.
It, it was the kid's choice, and so yeah, I had to see Inside Out 2, and it's funny because that the whole thing about the core belief it being like the sole message behind that movie is like
Yeah.
it's kind of funny that's like the synchronicity of what you're just talking about
That's
come
why
together
my
with like
friend took me to see that movie. She's like, "You're gonna love it." We saw it several weeks ago. So yeah, it's so synchronistic. What can I say?
it really is. Synchronicity on this show is a common theme.
I'm not surprised at all.
So gotta ask, do you
Yeah.
think people have their do you think people can have their spiritual awakenings intentionally, or do you think they can only have them when nature wants them to happen?
I think we can have them intentionally. I feel like the just from my experience of all these years in this work, not only in myself, but with other colleagues and students and clients, it's more about, are we willing to do our own personal development, our own emotional growth, our own working on expanding our perspectives, for example. If we choose to be, just think of like the most grumpy, curmudgeon-y, telling everyone off in traffic person that you can think of, we can choose to stay like that, or we can choose to be available for other emotions to come in. Since all of this work moves through the faculty of our emotion, that's what's quote unquote blocking us. If there's a block, or if someone is not, I don't know, expanding in their spiritual awareness, for example, it's almost always an emotional or personal development thing that's not being addressed. Those two have to grow in tandem. So I think anyone at any age, at any time in their life can make a different choice, or can make more choices. But they can also choose not to. That's kind of the pesky part of free will, I guess. Is that
Yeah, I mean,
is that what you were asking, or did I answer a totally different question?
no, you got it for the most part.
Okay.
I mean, it was funny because I was kind of I only had one show last week because I had a couple people who couldn't make it,
Oh, bummer.
and it happens every freaking week of my life. I'm used to it. It's why I book so many freaking interviews. But we had a conversation at the end of the episode in depth about like how alcohol and other substances like impede on people's spiritual awakenings because it's taking them out of their natural mind, so they can't even grow their mind because they're just stunting it with everything else they're doing.
I am not so much a purist like that, and I know some people even go to the extreme of like, you must be vegan, you must, have, there's all these rules and conditions. For me, I really feel like, I know this amazing medium. She passed away within the last couple years. She was in her 80s. Her name's Mavis Patilla. 50 years a medium, one of the most respected and incredible mediums in the field. She loved her gin and tonic, and she would tell it right to your face and would not quit smoking for anything. So I think it's the intention. I think, is someone doing it to check out and to not deal with their emotions? Then yeah, certainly it's gonna cloud everything. But is it within a healthy limit for that person, whatever it is? Then I think that's a different thing. Do you know what I mean? It's that rule of moderation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I can, and I gotta say that Matilda is a woman after my own heart. But
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. She's an amazing soul. But the other thing is, I feel like, kind of back to what we were saying earlier, different things for different stages of our life, right? We're not the same version of us all the way through. So there might be a period of time where someone needs to really cut out a lot of things in their life, and then there might be a different time where, yeah, some of those things are they can add in, depending on, it's, based on the individual.
of course,
Yeah,
every human leads a different path. I mean, not the same formula doesn't work for everybody. That's just the way
exactly.
life
Yeah,
is.
totally. But I
Thank
think
God.
that's the thing, is we're so conditioned right now in our society and culture that, like, we want it boiled down to the quickest fix, under 3 minutes, under 4 steps. Do you know what I mean? And like, it better work. And it's like, well, there's not a like one size fits all quick fix for a lot of this stuff.
No,
It's a relationship with our senses. It's not a light switch that someone's going to turn on and off and suddenly, okay, you're spiritually awakened. It's a relationship building, not a light switch.
exactly. I mean, I agree. It's not. So,
I wish. I
okay.
try. I mean, believe me, I sat there for many, many times when I was new in my work with like the crystals on my head, and I read so many books and watched so many videos and tried so many things, and I was like, oh, that's all not at all the way it works. So if there was a shortcut, I would have found it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There is no real shortcuts to it. I mean, there's no witch doctor in a high mountain somewhere that's going to give you some crystal that you do everything. Like, it's just not. That's
That's not why we're
fiction.
here either. You know what I mean? We're here for the processing of it all, I think.
Well, actually, okay. That kind of. I wasn't going to go down this wormhole, but it just kind of made me want to go down it. So, what are your opinions on reincarnation?
Okay, that's a great question. Sorry, my eyes are so watery. I'm in San Diego, and it's been unseasonably humid and a little bit drizzly. So we got all the pollens happening.
Wow.
I believe in reincarnation. I believe that it is up to the individual soul. I also think we have the ability to like 1, 2 skip a few if we want. Um, so yeah, I think it's a real thing. It's a little bit of the work I do, but I do it really mostly with my advanced students, more of like that Akashic record work, past life experiences, all of that. That's I don't know that it's for everybody. I don't know that everybody needs it or would even be interested in it. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like again, it's what's the intention? Is it to grow and understand ourselves and want to understand our, different things about us or our history, for example, or is it because someone told you, oh yeah, you got to fix something in your past life and then this life will be magically fixed. You don't have to do any hard work on yourself. So, but yeah, I think it's a valid thing. What's your opinion after all these hundreds of interviews with
Uh,
interesting weirdos?
uh, Good way to put it, actually. But
Well, that's such a loving term for me. Like we're all amazing weirdos. That's what I love about
exactly,
humans.
fucking exactly. It's an ever evolving opinion, of course, but
Okay.
at this current state and time, I believe that we go to a big DMV in the sky, kind of, or in
Okay.
space. And to me, that's where we basically take our ticket and wait for when we're supposed to reincarnate again. I debate whether we have choice over that or not. Part of me thinks we kind of don't, because I just sometimes I think a lot of us wouldn't choose the lives we choose if we could. Like I think a lot of us, I think we get a preview of it before we come down, and I think if we actually had a choice, it wouldn't. No, we wouldn't be picking the lot. A lot of us wouldn't be picking the lives we leave. Sometimes, I mean, who would? There's so many times in history who would want to live through them voluntarily. So, I mean, I think we're kind of forced. There's some, like you said before, it's there's free will, but there's no chance. Everything is somewhat fated, somewhat synchronistic, and feels like there's a big hand controlling it all, kind of.
Interesting.
And whether it's ultra terrestrial, extraterrestrial, god of some kind, I mean, I don't know. Or if it's really just Odin, who the fuck knows? But I I sure as hell don't know, so I don't like to put names to anything. But I feel like there's something there. There's got to be something controlling it all, or it's just the way the universe was created or evolved. I mean, however the hell that happened, and it's just the universe controlling it all. Maybe the universe is a celestial being in its own right that can control things. Who the hell knows? I mean, manifestation's real, so maybe the universe has some powers. I mean, I don't really know.
It's
I mean,
interesting too, because I don't know that all of it is necessarily so mutually exclusive. I know people tend to get in these kind of camps of like, I believe this or this or this, and never the two shall meet. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. I think a lot of theories can be true at the same time. And I've asked and wondered about this quite a bit. And I've even done experiments with friends of like, I'm also a trance medium, which means I can I don't often talk about this publicly. I've done it publicly a little bit, but I did a 5-year program and I can essentially move my consciousness to somewhere else and channel beings other than myself. I'll say it that way. And I've learned a lot. I've asked a lot of questions and I've done experiments with other friends where I will go away and they will ask the questions and I don't know the questions ahead of time. And I often get the sense that the way we can conceptualize it and need it to be so compartmentalized, they kind of always indicate, well, sort of, but not quite. Like the way we want to conceptualize things feels like a very, very kindergarten version of like all the complexity that's actually going on at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
the human brain is not equipped to handle the truth, and that's why we compartmentalize everything about the spiritual world, because we need to. I think our heads would literally explode if we didn't. I mean, literally, when I was just given that my 5-minute explanation of why I think reincarnation is, like like I start getting like a little lightheaded. My vision starts to go low when I talk about that because it's like it's my brain trying to
Such a
wrap
big
around
concept,
every
right?
yeah, it's my brain trying to wrap around the whole concept of it, and it's like the brain's just like not enough power equipped to handle this. Like it's just
Now
and
imagine when we are on the other side and we don't have this physical body with a physical brain that our highest soul self is kind of live streaming partially through, and we have the totality of understanding. We can have all of our memories simultaneously at once. You're right. Like our human brain would explode from trying to have every memory we've ever had all at once. But yeah, once we're not in this physical experience, I think we get all of it at once.
well, yeah, I mean that's why in every kind of every media pop culture, evolution for humans, eventually we don't need bodies because we just become a mind and we become and once that happens we once we get rid of the body our mind is limitless, we can do what we want to do.
I think we have that now already on the spirit side. I think the reason we individualize like this is there's a quote, and I can't remember. I want to say this is from Deepak Chopra, but I'm not 100% sure. So please forgive me in the comments if I'm wrong. But it's essentially the goddess hides herself from herself to find herself again. So it's like we kind of individualize from this ocean of collective into these individual drops and think in our human capacity that we're totally separate from all that is. And then it's only so we can have these awakenings and conversations and have the full spectrum of human emotion. If we are on the other side, just in total consciousness, we don't need the challenging spectrum of human emotions. That's only over here. So when loved ones are on the other side, it's why they are not angry anymore. It's why they come to understanding about the not nice things they did when they were here, that kind of a thing. So I think we have that already on the other side. I think we come on purpose and separate ourselves on purpose for experience. It's just my nerdy my nerdy thoughts, but
Yeah, I mean it's possible, it's highly possible, and I don't know, you would think we'd go into you would think if we reincarnate after that point we'd come back a little bit smarter, but we never seem to. So
I think we choose versions of our experience, and I don't think this is the only place we learn. I don't think this is the only school available to us.
exactly, I mean I agree.
I mean, we'll all
Oh,
find out one day. That's the truth.
it's it will be forthcoming at one point. That's for damn
Exactly.
sure.
Exactly.
Ain't no rush to get to that point, but
Yeah, exactly.
so we I think we kind of hit this a little bit earlier. Like I think there was something mentioned about it, and I kind of wanted to come back to it because
Yeah.
we kind of talked about the good side of everything.
Okay.
Have you ever had anything not so good come through when you were working your spiritualness?
I have a bit of a controversial perspective on this. So, it's just my own experience. I actually, before I studied mediumship and was like, okay, this is happening, I'm going to investigate this and see if this is okay. I didn't even allow television shows like Charmed, or like, I don't like scary movies anyway. I didn't allow anything like that in my show. Never in my house, never a mediumship show, never a Long Island, no button, none of it was allowed. And then when these things started happening, I kind of would always say I don't want to open doors I don't understand. But I had a lot of kind of fear programming, I think is probably how your audience will understand it, from having experience in like Catholic school and participating in Christian religion in a serious way for a long time. So I had these kind of very good and evil paradigm already implanted in here, so to speak, in an educational way. So once I started really understanding mediumship and experiencing it, I had a lot of questions and I had a lot of checks that I wanted to understand and make sure, like I said, I didn't want to open doors I didn't understand. And what I understand right now is that the bad and scary, like oogie boogies, they belong to this world and not to the other side. There's channeler that I have followed for like forever. Their name is Esther Hicks, and she channels a consciousness known as Abraham. So she goes by Abraham Hicks on YouTube and all the places. And someone at one point asked them, they do a lot of law of attraction work and abundance work and stuff like that. And they said, well, if our thoughts become things and enough humans are doing like bad actions or being terrible people essentially and thinking of these terrible creations, then it's going to be created in this world to some degree in some way. But I've never experienced it from the other side. Never. It's the craziest thing. I've experienced some strange things, but they feel very this world. And even in a trance state, when I've been over there, like way over there, it's only supportive and that loving end of the spectrum, which I know probably sounds a little kumbaya, but that's my experience. So I know it's controversial and people want to hear about the bad stuff, but I think that belongs to this realm here.
I mean, it's a theory. It's definitely a theory that's popular, and
is it? Okay, I feel like it's very unpopular when people hear me say it.
No, I mean,
I don't think there's a bad place people go to either. I don't think there's I understand that experience very differently now too. So, which
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I truly believe in like a hell either. But
I'll tell you the way, I don't know if you've heard this before, but the way I understand the life experience and the way my guides, I guess my team has shown it to me over the years when I've asked about it, essentially it's not like a man with a book at the gate who's like, here's the list of things. It's an experience, and we experience and kind of go back through. It's not quite the right way to say it, but we re-experience and have to stand in every person's shoes that we ever have created any emotion to any degree in. So positive, negative. So if someone is a good person, like Mother Teresa, that's probably a really lovely experience to go back and feel all the love and compassion that she gave. But if you're a terrible person who hurt a lot of people and you have to go and stand in the shoes, the soul of every person that you've ever hurt, and time's not the same over there, as you know. That could take a really long time. So when I understood that, and I've heard other people say it, it just made the whole thing make so much more sense of like, oh, okay, that makes more sense to me anyway.
It does. It makes sense. And Ginger Mason actually asked a question.
Okay.
Do you think there are different levels of spirit that evolve as we reincarnate? Yeah.
Meaning like you could reincarnate as like a more ascended than human type being? I think that's what you mean. If I'm not understanding that correctly, correct me, and I'm happy to speak to whatever you like. And again, I think I've said this, but if I haven't, I want to make it super clear. I don't have all the answers. None of us has all the answers. So please don't think I know everything. And I'm always learning too. But I do believe that we can stay back as a spirit guide, for example. Like say I've had a human experience and we all attain wisdom, even if we just come.
That's what she meant.
Good. Thank you, Ginger. Even if we just come this one go round, we like have experiences. And think about if you've come back to this incarnation like 10 times, for example, you have so much like 10x compassion and experience. And I think it's even exponential more than that. So yeah, I think we can play different roles. I think we can participate in different ways. I think we can be a guide for someone. I think we can guide in lots of different ways too. I think for me, I believe angels are just like a different type of being entirely who don't incarnate on this plane, this earth plane. But I don't have proof of that. So that's why I like evidential mediumship. There's a bit of proof in there. And I do think we can have experiences as other types of beings other than human beings. I think that's what you're asking. But I don't think there's necessarily... I don't know that there's like okay, you got to go through level 1, 2, and 3 before you can participate as like a Martian, for example. I'm just making that up. I do think there's other planetary things happening, but I don't know that it's like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the qualifications are for when you get to do which role.
It's not like working your way through your belts and cry or anything.
Exactly.
You don't have to go
That's
through.
A great way to say it.
you don't have to go through a level to get to. I mean,
And I think we can
from
choose
my
to come back as an animal too.
I was just gonna say, from my beliefs I put together from talking to so many different people in this world, you can come back as an animal. You can come back as a different an extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial species. Like if you really want to, like you have.
You can be a cactus if it serves your soul's. But kind of to Ginger's point, like I do believe that when we are the highest version of ourselves, the most wise and pure version of ourselves, I think we are the ones that sit with a council of guides that we have chosen for our incarnation. I think we map out not necessarily like the life plan in the way of like this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, but I believe we choose certain elements. I believe that we kind of make contracts or agreements with certain people that they're going to cross our path at a certain time. And then that's where our free will choice comes in. We can choose to go down that path. We can choose not to. We can choose to date that person or not date that person. But I think we're orchestrating a lot more of it than perhaps religious systems would like us to believe.
Oh,
I'll say it that way. And I have no shade on anyone's religion. Everyone, please, like, no shade. Believe whatever you believe. It's all good.
Yeah, we're not going to get into my opinion on organized religion. That would be another.
Most of us
That'd be
have some
another
opinions about it, but yeah,
as
I
we
think
should.
everyone can. I don't think these things are mutually exclusive either. It's just like we all have lungs to breathe. We all have this group of additional senses that we come in with kind of stock, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It really does. It just, I don't know. I mean,
Look at like the Heart Map Institute, for example. If anyone Googles the study, they now have studied that the heart, the organ of the heart, gives off an electromagnetic field, an energetic field that goes more than 4 feet out around. It's our auric field. And most of us know it in common language back to the beginning of our personal space bubble. How every person that I could think of is probably experienced when you're in a line at the grocery store, for example, and you're just zoning out or doing whatever you're doing, and someone comes too close in your space. You don't see them, but you turn around because they're in your auric field. They're in your bubble. You talk to a 4-year-old,
yeah,
and you know what their personal space bubble is.
exactly. I mean, and trust me, I Instacart, so I feel this a lot. Like it's just that person that's too close to you, and they're just being freaking, like
That's
they're
being
ready to.
psychic. That's psychic.
I mean, it's like
You're
they're breathing right down
sensing
your neck.
energy that's non-physical. It's not someone physically touching you. It's just that their energy is too blended into your energy. That's what it is. See, it's just the
Exactly.
language. It's you do know what these things are, Jeremy. You're more advanced than you think.
Someone want to tell my wife that?
Yeah, sure. She's probably double advanced of you though, so we'll see. Bring her in.
Probably, but well, Ginger says that she thinks that your auric field is an aspect of your soul.
I agree. So, not to plug my own podcast, but I just did an episode about this not long ago called Your Aura 101. So I think we really need to be teaching about this because what I understand is kind of what Ginger said, that the auric field is essentially the emanation of your soul outside of your physical body. Because we're more than just this little personality and this little brain that's like a puppet being controlled. We have this soul through us. So I agree with Ginger that it's this emanation of our soul's energy. It has information in it. It goes out ahead of us to discern information, just like we were talking about the grocery line. It's aware of information that you're not consciously using your 5 senses to perceive a lot of the times.
Exactly. I agree. And
Yeah.
since you kind of brought this up earlier that you can see auras, so I kind of want to ask about that. Like, is there a huge difference in people's auras? Like, is it like night versus day sometimes, or is it all kind of similarish?
That's a good question. So when I was younger and on and off my whole life, I have been able to see some degree of some people's auric field with my physical eyes. Now, often we're perceiving them with what would some people would call our third eye. It's not necessarily only located in the region that people associate it with, but it's our perceiving. So I know that there's aura photography that is kind of taking a photo of the color right on top, for example. But I always kind of chuckle now that I understand it when people are like, what color is my aura? We all have all the colors all the time. It's just in varying degrees and varying layers depending on what we're looking at. So if I'm doing like a spiritual assessment, for example, and I'm looking at the core qualities of someone's soul, those are partially existent in colors, in a color wave. So certain colors mean certain things, and it will let me know if someone is more inclined to like own a business, for example, versus to be a caretaker, let's just say. Those are different qualities of a person. So, but there are other layers that I can kind of dip into a little bit. Again, the languaging is like, so I'm struggling. So I'm like, none of this language is exactly right. That I can blend into where I can understand it's not necessarily the core of who they are, but it's what's going on in their life right now. Because essentially, when we're reading, whether I'm reading psychically or I'm reading mediumistically, it's the energy of my soul blending with the energy of another soul. It's either a soul in a body, which is psychic, or a soul out of a body, which is mediumship. So it's in that blended soul area that I'm perceiving. And sometimes I'll see colors in my mind's eye. If someone's on a pretty light, neutral background, I sometimes will see them with my physical eyes, but it's understanding what the colors mean. There's like meanings for the certain colors. But yeah, we all have all the colors all the time, and it's moving. Again, it's not like a shirt that you came in wearing. It's these emotions and qualities. So it's all kind of like, I see it kind of like a lava lamp. They're always moving. They're always receding and changing. What were you going to say? Sorry.
I was gonna say like a mood ring, like kind of like a mood ring is supposed to work.
Kind of, but it's all the colors all the time. I'll just say it that way. In different, and then we have different layers to our auric field that represent different energetic layers, physical layers.
Well, shit, folks. Dio was right. We're all the rainbow.
Yeah,
But
we're all the rainbow.
so our time is coming to an end. And you said you didn't want to plug your
if I've let you ask me any of the things you wanted to either. So.
Oh no! I did.
Okay.
I got trust me. I
will
told
tangent you all night, Jeremy. So.
I told you these are free form. It goes wherever the wormholes take us.
That's what I love about your show.
And you said you didn't want to plug your podcast earlier, but you know what? I'm going to have you talk about your podcast for a little bit before we go, just so people know what your podcast is about. So check it out.
I would love that. It is a labor of love. It is one of my babies that's took me. It was a year for me to even agree to do it, just because I'm a bit of I wanted to do it right. It's called Spirit Speakeasy. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts on all the platforms. And I also release a video version on my website in the blog section, joyfulmedium.com. Essentially, the way I started it was to have a resource out there that was at least somewhat trustworthy, meaning I vet the people that I have. It's 2 parts. So I do every other week interview and every other week one-on-one chat with me, where I'm teaching kind of like I was saying, Aura 101. I teach experience working with an archangel, for example. I do once in a while Ask a Medium Anything, where people send in questions and I answer them for a full episode. I've done readings on there. It's a little bit of everything. And the interviews, I always say, are the mediums, mystics, and spiritual luminaries of our time. And so I kind of get to ask questions from this little bit of in the field perspective. And for me, when I was first trying to learn, one of the frustrating things was there wasn't a lot of resources that weren't like the same varied versions of like 10 signs you might be a medium. You know what I mean? And they're like all the same. They're all from some, I don't know, cookie cutter place. So I wanted something that was asking deeper questions than that. And the way I kind of say it is, it's like, come behind the velvet ropes and be in the Spirit Speakeasy with me. So it's got a little bit of a 20s speakeasy vibe to it. I always love hearing people's stories and spirit stories, and so I love it a lot. It's been a lot of fun. We're almost at this point.
Gotta say, Spirit Speakeasy. I love that freaking name. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm a big fan of alliteration. For those who know my other show,
Me too.
so yeah, it makes everything more fun to read. But and it's funny you mentioned Velvet Ropes because I mean I would be remiss to not talk a little bit at the end of this show because as I said in the beginning of the episode, folks, she is a former WWE diva, and
Yeah.
she happened to work with one of my top 5 wrestlers of all time. So I got to ask, what was Paul White, the Big Show, like behind the scenes?
He is he's a really intelligent guy. He's, believe it or not, one of the best actors I've ever met in my life. And the way I got that job, which I only did for I think a little bit more than a year, right around a year with them, was I was an actor before that. I was a SAG actor, and they were wanting to bring in females who could play the role that females play for them and also work on the storylines. So we didn't necessarily have to do all of the physical parts to the same degree, even though I was learning. So I got to work with him so much. We were together all the time. He is such an incredible actor and like a bit of a prankster where he can like pretend he's crying and have actual tears when he's not crying. And he pulled the wool over my eyes so many times in that way. He's a good guy. He's a he used to give me such a hard time about I always had the biggest crush on The Rock, which is like, I mean, who doesn't or who didn't? And they're all really good friends because they worked together for so many years. And I got to work with Dwayne multiple times, and we'd be kind of doing something or blocking for, sometimes they make you practice parts of the things that are going to happen earlier. And I had a lot of those of you, a lot of your listeners probably don't know about that show, but I was kidnapped and locked in trunks of cars, and lots of crazy things happened to me on that show. And show would give me such a hard time and be like, if you don't XYZ, or if you don't, I'm going to call Dwayne right now and tell him that you have a crush on him. And I'd be like, oh my God, don't do that. Cause we would see them all the time. So he's like a big, giant child. He's an actual 7-foot child is how it feels.
Oh God, yeah.
He's
I
a
mean,
great guy. Yeah.
yeah, because I wish Netflix renewed his the Big Show or whatever it was called.
I never got to see it, but
Oh,
he's a great actor, I'll tell you.
he did such a good job on it. Like it was incredible. Him playing a dad role is just it fits perfectly. But
He's so good. I
and
mean, he's good.
it's funny because when I was a kid, like I was a big kid. I was tall, I was big, like, and so that was one of my favorite wrestlers because I could relate to him, and
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
he was always such a cool guy. I mean, he always seemed
Yeah,
like such
he's
a
a
cool
cool
guy
guy.
behind.
He's I mean, 7 feet. I'm all of 5'2", so there's a big there's people would say like,
Yeah.
is he actually that tall? No, he's actually that tall. So
Oh yeah. I mean, he's got a foot on me at least, but it's just I mean, that's the guy I always wanted to be. Like every time we wrestled on the trampoline as kids, I was the Big
oh,
Show.
I love
Like,
it. I love it. And I
yeah.
guess
So I had to
he
bring.
did get to meet and spend time with Andre the Giant on multiple occasions. We had
Yep.
talked about that several times because I was a fan of him when I was a kid. I mean, being from the East Coast, I think everyone who's in their 40s has some story about watching wrestling with cousins as kids and superplexing each other off the couches and stuff. So,
Oh God, yeah. God, trampoline. We hurt ourselves so bad, but
yeah. And those guys really hurt themselves too a lot. So,
they do. I always say it's entertainment, but it's sports more than entertainment. Like it's
yeah.
physical as could
I
be.
have so much
But
respect for all of the athletes because they really do. They really do. There's a lot, and there's a lot, kind of like we were talking about before we hopped on, that there's so many subcultures within everything, and there's so much to know behind the scenes of that world too, which is, yeah, it's really interesting. It's a different culture for
oh,
sure,
it is. It's a whole world in its own. And
and especially during that time when I was there in the kind of mid
oh
2000s.
yeah, the end of the Attitude Era, the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression Era. Yeah, big changes, big time. A lot of up and coming stars who are now legends at this point. So I mean,
Yeah,
20 years later, but
yeah.
I mean, and folks, yeah, yeah, I know this isn't a wrestling show, but I couldn't not bring that up.
I know
Come on,
it comes up. It comes up. I get emails
oh,
every now and then from from supporters who are like, "Did you know you just came out in the new video game?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't actually." So I don't play video games, so thanks for letting me know. So that's often how I find stuff out, is from the people.
Yeah, and I mean and did I also see that you were in the Beast and the Harlot video? Because
I
I
was.
fuck I fucking love that song, and ever since I read that earlier tonight, I've been trying to picture the video, but I just can't because it's been like 20 years since I
I think
watched it. But
my publicist at the time knew the bands, someone associated with the band, and they requested me. It was a strange point in my career to be doing a music video. That's why it sticks out. Um, yeah, it was a great time. It was a crazy experience. It was filmed in a beautiful little theater in LA, so it's got the kind of gold, kind of opera style out there in the audience, and it was a cool one. It was the original band too back then.
yeah, I mean, I love that album. I'm not a fan of them anymore, but that album was high school magic. So,
That's funny.
folks, you heard a little about you heard a lot about where you could find her. So please go check out Joy, check out our podcast, please. It's
Oh yeah, I should tell you, I have a free gift for all of your listeners if they're interested. I don't want to take. I know we're closing out, but it's a
go ahead.
free 3-day mini course. It's called Sign Magnet, and it helps people learn how to get signs from the universe. It helps people learn how to use numbers as signs. So anyone that sees like recurring numbers, 1111, 444, that kind of a thing, it teaches you what all the numbers mean and how to use them to get signs. And it teaches you how to get signs with your loved ones on the other side. If you go to the homepage of my website, joyfulmedium.com, you'll see it there, and you just put in your name and email. It's totally free, and it comes right to your email.
Well, there you go, folks. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, anyone can get signs. Super easy.
Well, there you go. And for all the watchers of this and rewatchers of this, I shall post that link to her site in the comments so you have it.
Thanks.
And just to make it easier. And you all know where you can find me. If you don't by now, just freaking shame. Freaking shame. But check out the outro. It's all there. And I will be back on Wednesday with another interview. So till then, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
It's been my pleasure to have you, Joy. And listeners, thanks for listening. This big show needs some sleep. So yeah. Good night.